Hello everyone and welcome back to another One Piece Cruise video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the treasure map versus Lucci CP-0, this time with fully free-to-play teams. Now these are quite fast, these are also meant to be speed teams with the wave clear and the least amount of specials used on the final stage to clear the quest. Now obviously these aren't going to be the most ideal in terms of points nor damage, but I feel like it's still pretty decent. For the final boss in Intrusion, we do have quite a good boost, 3.52x for the Intrusion and 2.9x for the final boss. Now as you can see there, I do have some supports that aren't free-to-play characters, but I try to be as accessible with these supports. Nothing that is a support or a recruit limited character or anything like that. We just use sometimes these very old rare recruits as support units. So the first team here is against old Luffy. He's a strength character, and this team we are predominantly using the Blitz Kaido as the captain because he is a very he has an amazing special. And not only that, but he also has a very strong captain ability, being 5x as a free-to-play character, which is really nice. So this quest we have to deal with chain attack down, we have threshold, and then the enemy has counter stance. We can ignore that though. The main gimmick here is that you have to get around the threshold with a like a special way of doing it. You can't use a special because you will get interrupted, and that does waste some time. So how we're doing it is we're actually using the the Pirate King Adventures CP-0 Lucci in his 5-star form, and he does actually reduce the effect of the enemy's threshold. So this is a nice way to get around it, and it will the threshold will still be there, but it will be very weak, so it's not really gonna be much of a hindrance to your team and your damage. Lucci also gives a 3.5x chain lock, and that's about it. That's going to allow us to get around the chain lock attack down, and Lucci is also a very high booster. Lucci and our Big Mom are going to be our main damage dealers on this team. Stage 1 we are going to use the special of Zoro. Stage 2 we're going to use Jack to wave clear and give us a color affinity, and then on the final stage we'll use Lucci and make him into the captain, and then we're going to use Kaido to give us an attack boost and orb boost of 2.5x. Very strong team. 3.5x chain lock, 2.5x attack and orb boost, and a 2x color affinity. Not to mention the fact that we have 2 boosted units here that are quick, meaning they have type damage and are going to be hitting like a truck. So very happy with this team. The only thing that I do need to mention is that we are using Laboon ship to ensure that our Jack is ready by stage 2. So for Saturday and Sunday, this ship will be gone, unfortunately. So it just means that you can't use Jack. It means you'll have to use Zoro to wave clear on stages 1 and 2. And Jack will become obsolete. You won't have the color affinity, but that's really not a train smash. The team has a lot of damage otherwise, and it doesn't need Jack's color affinity. It's just a nice additive to your damage. The second team here is against Robin, and this team we are using the Halloween Sabo from the Kizuna Clash, so you can go and buy him in the shop if you don't have him. So this Sabo is great because he does have the ability to reduce special rewind in his captain ability, and there is a lot of debuffs in here, mainly bind, despair and special rewind, and the enemy deals damage upon death. There is full immunity, so we can't use any conditional attack boosts. But how this team works is it's very basic. Stage 1 we use Brook to wave clear. Stage 2 we use Zoro. He's in a wave clear and give us a orb boost. And then on the final stage we have Bonnie support to get around all turns of the bind with sockets. And then we use Luffy to get around the despair and give us a chain lock and a base attack boost. And then finally we use Sabo. No, we don't even use Sabo, we just go in like that. We have a lot of buffs. Luffy also gives us a full board of matching orbs, although I think actually you can still use Sabo, although I don't recommend using it because he does give an orb boost, which Zoro already gives. That's basically for this team. It's a nice... Yeah, Sabo's not required. Don't use him, he's a waste of time. Just use Luffy. You already have enough. You have an orb boost, you have a chain lock, you have a full board of matching orbs, and you have a base attack boost. You could add a support for an attack boost if you want to Luffy or Sabo or color affinity, but I don't think it is necessary personally. Yeah, we have Brook and Zoro with type advantage. Just make sure they are high statted, but you shouldn't need to worry. That's 2 units that are boosted and with type advantage. So just make sure your Sabo's at level limit break 3 for his upgraded captain. Besides that, it doesn't really matter whatsoever. I don't think you actually need the Laboon ship for this one, just because of the low cooldown of Luffy. I would recommend level limit break 5 on Luffy, but I don't think it is necessary whatsoever. It just will help get you some more damage. The next team here is against Zoro. Now Zoro is quite a difficult boss. He does change types very easily based on your HP amount, so you can see here the different thresholds, and for us we are going to be the lowest amount here, where we are going to have the enemy turn into the Dex type. So that requires us to be below 28% HP. Actually, wait, no, we are actually going to the second threshold, which is where the enemy becomes an int type. So how this team works is we are using Stasi as a captain. She's a really strong unit, being 5.25x as a free-to-play captain. Make sure you have a maxed level limit break for this team to work. So stage 1, we're going to use Izo to wave clear and reduce our HP by 70%. Now that will get us to the point where the enemy will turn into the int type. Then stage 2, we use Kid and Law. They will wave clear and they'll give us a bunch of chain buffs and end of turn damage for the final stage. And then finally, on the last stage, we can use Hina special to give us an orb boost and change our orbs into beneficial. We can also use Stasi for a color affinity and giving us debuff reduction. And that's about it for the team. We have quite a lot of debuffs here, but really nothing too crazy. It looks like a lot, but in essence it's not much. It's just a 1 quick orb barrier, a 2-turn special rewind which Stasi gets around with her captain ability. We have unfavorable orbs, and that's about it. There's also a rewind to our captains, but once again Stasi ignores that because her effect is quite strong, being 3 turns of rewind negation. So yeah, Hina is important because remember there's that 1 quick orb barrier, and Hina does change the block orbs into matching. Hina herself is a quick character, so she gives herself a quick orb which allows you to get around the barrier. So just hit a good tap on Hina and then a perfect on your Robin, as the enemy will be the int type. So it's a very fast team. It's 2 specials, I mean just 1 special and 1 support. You don't even need to use Stasi on the final stage, although it is an option if your damage gets quite close later on. Once again, Hina is quite a high cooldown unit, so we are using the Laboon ship, but also later on, don't worry about it. It just means that you have to stall 1 turn on stage 1, I think. Yeah, for Hina to be ready. So it's not a big train smash, it just means that it will be a bit slower on the last 2 days. But by then, you should be done with your grinding. Come on, get treasure map out of the way as soon as possible. We do have Ranger support there. Now, don't sound the alarms. It's not required whatsoever. It's just an option if you want an attack boost as well, but it's definitely not necessary. We already have an orb boost and a ton of chain buffs from your Kid and Law, as well as a color affinity from Stasi, so don't worry about it, but it is an option there if you do want some more damage. The final mini boss is against Lilith, who is a strength type and does change typing depending on your HP. Now this team, it does thrive on low HP because we do want the enemy to become the Psi type. So if you are at below 50%, she becomes a Psi type. If you're above 50%, she becomes strength. There's 5 turns of resilience, which is really annoying. We have a barrier. We have despair, paralysis, and special bind. Trust me, with that special bind, it's super annoying to get around as a free-to-play team. But we do have Junbei there, the absolute GOAT. He's a clash character. He gets around all 7 turns. Now this team does work with the Psi type, so that our Whitebeard and our what's his face, Mihawk, have type advantage. So how it works is, stage 1, we use the super type of our Luffy to wave clear. Junbei does proc that, so that we can use it to wave clear. Stage 2, we use the special of our we use our other Luffy's super type to wave clear. And then on the final stage, we do use our Whitebeard special to give us an attack boost, orb boost, and color affinity. And then we use our what's his face, Mihawk to give us a chain lock and get around the enemy's resilience. So that was a mouthful, and also I did mistake how this team works. We are actually working with the enemy being in strength form, which is why we have our Eneru there being the one unit dealing damage. The reason why I use Whitebeard is because he does require the enemy to have a barrier and full immunity to get the most out of his special, and since the enemy has both of those, it's very beneficial. Now the one thing I have to note that you need to make sure you have is you need to have Eneru's barrier pin at max. So it is quite an ask, but it's not the end of the world. And then we have these two guys. It doesn't really matter, although yeah, okay, so that's basically it for this team. I don't know what I'm on about. Very strong team. We have an attack boost, orb boost, and color affinity, and a chain lock, as well as I was going to say super type from Luffy, but it doesn't really help Eneru. Just make sure your Eneru is statted well and that he does have whatchamacallit, his barrier pin maxed out. Otherwise this team won't work. Oh yeah, also Luffy is a despair and paralysis reducing captain, which is why we can get around those debuffs. So that team also does need the Laboon ship, forgot to mention, but yeah, Junbei will require a turn of stalling if you don't have that Laboon ship. Then for the final boss against S-Shark, we are using Atlas Friend Captain, so if that sounds alarms, then too bad. I mean, you should be using Atlas as a Friend Captain. She's super helpful and the point boost is definitely worth running. So Atlas herself is only really going to help us in the final stage to get around the orb reducing effect debuff, which basically makes our orbs very weak. She gets around that entirely. She also gets around the enemy's damage reduction, but besides that, she doesn't really do much. So the intrusion is really where she shines and does a lot for our team. But how this team works is stage 2, there's bind, burn, damage reduction, and a barrier. We're going to ignore the barrier. We are going to ignore the burn. I'll talk to you about that in a moment, because it is a very hefty burn, but unfortunately there's not a single free-to-play character that is on the boosted list that gets around burn, so we have to find another way to get around it. It's very annoying, but it's not the end of the world. And then obviously the bind for 6 turns to the top row. Now that bind really does suck because Kobe is our best option as being captain, which is kind of stupid because Kobe is our main bind reducer and he can't reduce bind if he's binded himself, you know. So that's why we have to run all those supports. Why I'm running Kuma, the Clash character with Bonnie support. That will get around 5 of the 6 turns of the bind, and then we have the support of Nami on Frankie to get around the other turn of it. The other option is to also put the Pudding Recruit on your Sanji. So either one works. I just think Nami is a lot more accessible for most players to use. We also have the support of Robin here for an attack boost if you do want it, just to make stage 2 a bit easier to clear. But how this works is, so that's all the turns of the bind dealt with. Then we have the special of Frankie getting around 5 of the 6 turns of the damage reduction on stage 2. He will also give us a color affinity, but that doesn't really help our team since it is only to side characters. Then we have Blackbeard there. This character is really nice because he does get around the last other turn of the enemy's damage reduction that the Frankie doesn't reduce. And that's about it for stage 2, I think. I think we also use we use Kuma on the last stage. So I think that's about it for stage 2. We don't really have much, which is why I suggested that Robin support, just to get your damage to where you need to be. Once again, I emphasize that these teams aren't going to get you super far in terms of the final boss and intrusion, just because of the damage issues, especially for the final boss. I think the intrusion's quite fine in terms of the damage, but for this one, the damage is quite tight on stage 2. You can also use Kobe support for a chain boost if you want. That will also help. And yeah, that's basically it. The burn. So let's talk about the burn. So we do actually have what's his face, Sanji here. We are going to use him on stage 2. So Kobe with Sanji is going to be a chain boundary with a chain boost, meaning our starting chain is going to be really, really nice. And then we also have the attack boost from the support of Robin. So overall, the damage is actually not too bad. We have a really good chain, and yeah. So the burn, the enemy will probably be Sai, which is why we're running Blackbeard. Now you were probably thinking why we're running Blackbeard, because he's not doing much. He's just reducing 1 turn of DR. But the thing is, he does have barrier penetration, which, as you can see, a recurring theme is that we are using barrier pen a lot in this treasure map. But his is really nice. You don't actually need to level it up much, I think, because our HP isn't getting reduced at this stage. So don't worry about maxing it out. Just maybe get it to level 2 or 3 and it should be fine. But he's going to be hitting through the barrier. So how we are going to do this is we're going to hit a good with our Sanji or any of your characters. Also, Sanji special gives our Blackbeard a matching orb as well. So you hit a good on one of your characters and then a perfect on your Blackbeard. That is 130k hit, which is still quite a bit of damage, but it's not the end of the world. So that was a lot of talking, but that's how this team works on stage 2. Final stage, we have an interrupt for changing your orbs, which is very annoying. But the thing is, the interrupt only activates 1 time, which is very beneficial. As you can see here, the interrupt for slot change is only 1 time occurring. So that means if we do change our orbs twice, then the second time they won't do anything. Now, why would we want to change orbs? We get a full board of recovery orbs, which in most cases we can just ignore and treat it as beneficial. But there is a 1 strength slot barrier, which is very, very annoying. We have chain attack down, damage reduction. As I said, Atlas gets around that. And then there's also a bunch of debuffs that they're trying to use to kill us. Remove SFX, we don't have to worry about that. We do have our chain being very, very tanky with the chain boundary from our Sanji. Make sure you have his double special activation maxed, and then also the chain boost from our Kobe. So at this stage we use what's his face, Sanji. Then the enemy will activate the interrupt because we changed orbs. Then the second time we use our Kuma to give us an orb boost, as well as change the orbs into matching yet again. Kuma will get a strength orb allowing you to break the barrier, and it will be happy days from that point onwards. So really just activate the left side characters specials on the final stage and you'll be fine. Atlas, Sanji and Kuma. So it's a very strong team. I'm happy with this. Atlas gives an attack boost, Kuma gives an orb boost, and we have a ton of chain buffs from our Kobe and our Kuma and Sanji, I mean. So that's about it for this team. Very, very strong. Just make sure your Sanji is at level limit break 5 so that you give a chain boundary instead of a chain lock. So that's it for the final boss team. As for the intrusion, we have a team centered around what's his face? Tashigi? Yeah, Tashigi. So how this team works is we are relying heavily on Atlas as a friend captain here. Okay, excuse me, but yeah, so this is the intrusion team. We are using Tashigi as the captain. She's a very solid lead, and I'm not trying to play games again with this Kobe because we do get a bunch of top row debuffs on stage 2 yet again that would prevent Kobe as a captain from using his special to reduce the debuffs. So as you can see here, top row bind and despair, Kobe reduces both of them. So absolute goat, we are using him as a crewmate this time around. He also gives us a chain boost as usual. Final stage, we'll use Junbei for threshold and also to get around the enemy's threshold. The threshold that he gives us is to survive the 100k death hit. Mihawk himself is going to get around the resilience on the final stage. No. He's going to get around the defense up on the final stage. And then we have Atlas getting around the attack down, the weak orb boost, the block orbs, the damage reduction, as well as not the threshold. The threshold we are going to get around with our Tashigi. So you may notice that Tashigi only gets around 4 turns of defense up and threshold, which is not enough. But then our Junbei and our Mihawk get around those other 2 turns. Atlas gets around the defense up, I mean the damage reduction entirely, so you don't have to worry about that. You can use the special of Lucci on stage 2 for a chain lock. We don't need it on the final stage since Mihawk gives a chain lock already. That's about it for this team. I mean, there's not much to it. We have a color affinity from our Tashigi. We have a attack boost from Atlas, a chain lock from our Mihawk. and a chain boost from our Kobe, although we're not really using it since we have a chain lock from our Mihawk. So very basic team, very effective and very fast since we aren't using many supports. Support effect, I mean, the Laboon ship isn't really necessary, but we're just using it for HP to ensure we survive, but I don't think it's necessary for this team whatsoever. That's about it for this video. I mean, if you do have any questions about these teams, obviously ask them down below. Yeah, I obviously do make mistakes sometimes, so I would really appreciate it if you could notify me before the treasure map starts if I can change anything. I don't want you guys going into the treasure map and dying, losing gems, wasting your time. So obviously if you see any mistakes, let me know in the comments. This video is a more deeper dive into the gimmicks themselves and how the teams deal with them compared to my previous video, so that's why it is a lot longer. But I'll see you guys in the next one. I'll probably upload again for the playthrough of the treasure map itself on Wednesday. I might upload some tidbits in between, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, and I'm out.